Leading off for PopFlyPopShop.com.
Say that we talk and say, hey, just want
Steve Sax, a name that resonates with Dodger pride, made an unforgettable entrance into Major League Baseball in 1982. Immediately, he became the embodiment of the Dodgers' fighting spirit, clinching Rookie of the Year and embedding himself in the hearts of fans. With Sax at second base, the infield was a canvas, and he, an artist, showcasing grace and precision that turned routine plays into highlights. His batting was equally impressive, delivering when it mattered most and fueling key victories. Sax's contributions were pivotal in leading the Dodgers to the pinnacle of baseball success with the 1988 World Series championship. Beyond the field, his passion and love for the game enriched Dodger Stadium's legacy, leaving a lasting legacy that inspires both fans and upcoming players. Steve Sax is not just a former Dodger, he is a perpetual symbol of excellence and the enduring spirit of baseball.
That's right. We are here live. Ryan, the artist and creator of Pop Fly Pop Shop. Say hello, Daniel.
Yeah, probably.
Hello, folks.
And over here,
Like I mentioned something at Reddit, we're having dinner on Saturday.
Dodger legend, Rookie of the Year, two-time World Champ, five-time All-Star, Steve Sax. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, fellas. Good to be with you.
Awesome. Well, if you're new to Pop Fly, Daniel is making these beautiful comic book style covers. They are only available for 1 week, and they are retired forever. And this week, it is Steve Sax. There is also an autograph option, an autograph option, and we are going to do a giveaway. So send your questions in. Right off the bat, Steve Sax, I got to ask you, as a Northern California guy, what's it like being a Dodger legend?
Well, I've just happened to be around some people that I work with the Giants organization right now. I grew up loving the Giants and hating the Dodgers, oddly enough. But after I got into the Dodger organization, you know, it was a great place to be. I knew that they were a top flight organization when I got drafted. And, you know, I still have a lot of friends there, and they're still a great organization.
Now, your 88 team, Daniel and I were both kids in the LA area, so you guys are all legends to us. You were a very blue-collar, grinded-out kind of team. How would you compare that to, like, the philosophy of the Dodgers now, which is, like, hired mercenaries?
It's already falling down.
Well, we were like that, and our team was based on very traditional values, the way the Dodgers kind of ran things from a long time ago, and that was pitching and defense. And you know, if you look at our 88 team where we won the World Series that year, we didn't have a lot of firepower. You know, the addition of Kirk Gibson made a big difference in our team. But our team was basically built on solid pitching and strength up the middle, and that's kind of the good reasons why we won.
I think you were one of the most underrated stolen base guys from that era. I mean, 83, you stole 56. There was a guy named Ricky Henderson playing who got 108. So I kind of took his team out. But, I mean, 56 last year would have been third most, and that's even with all the new rules to help stolen bases. How important was stolen bases to you and your pride?
Well, it was huge for us because we needed to have that spark at the top of the order. Again, traditionally built team. You had the speed at the top of the order. We had the bulk of the 3, 4, and 5 hitters with Marshall and Guerrero and Greg Brock and those guys in there to add the firepower. Kenny Landreau was a great second place hitter that really gave me an opportunity to run. Even with the strike, he would take 2 strikes sometimes. Kenny Landreau was an excellent second place hitter. Being left-handed, that really helped me as well. But I think overall, the stolen base factor, I think, is coming back into baseball now. We're going to see more speed in the game, and I think it's important that we do.
Now, what about specifically in the 88 playoffs against the Mets? Some guys say they steal it off the pitcher. You ripped 5 off of Gary Carter. Was that off of him, or was it off the pitchers?
I never stole off the catcher. I didn't even look who was catching. I didn't care because it didn't matter. If I got the good jump off the pitcher, you know, they weren't going to throw me out. So I didn't care about the catcher. Only one time when I was in Cincinnati and Johnny Bench was catching, I thought, I got to steal a base off Johnny Bench because I have to tell everybody I did it.
Yeah.
So one time I stole second and Johnny Bench was catching just to say I did it. Yeah, and I made it. So that was good.
That was my next question. Did you make it? Yes.
Yeah, I did. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. We are here live with Steve Sax. Daniel, can you show your cover again? And in case other people have not made the connection yet, in his career highlights, what did you dare to include, Daniel?
I had to include The Simpsons, and we are of a certain age, and we had to do it. Had to.
2-1 on a television broadcast.
Yeah, so talk about Steve Sax. You weren't just on the Dodgers great team. You were on the power plant softball team, the greatest team ever assembled. How did that come about?
Well, they asked Don Magley and I to come if we would like to go on the show called The Simpsons. It was only a year in. And when we came to Anaheim to play the Angels, they said that's where you would have the opportunity to go in there and lend your voice and be part of this. Part of the show. So we said, okay. So we did it. It took us a few hours, maybe 2 or 3 hours. They were really great to us, and it was a fun thing to do on a day where we didn't have much going on. So we went in there before we went to the park and did this, and little did we know that it would become the iconic show that it is. And also that Simpson episode, Homer at Bat, is the #1 episode all time of The Simpsons. So we're always going to be a part of that.
So Daniel, in the pop fly mythology, he has now done Canseco, Smith, Boggs, Mattingly, and Steve Sax. So he's slowly making his way through. But
I see a pattern here. Yeah,
you got one before King Griffey Jr. Just saying. A little secret about Daniel, I'm going to sell him out on. He is a sucker for Who's the Boss. He didn't know I was going to say this. Can you share how in the world did that happen?
Being in LA, you have an opportunity to do some of these shows, and they asked me if I would come on Who's the Boss. I think when Angela swatted me on the hind end, I think it was pretty much ad lib that she did that, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. I enjoyed it, so what the heck, it all went over good. I didn't mind. No problem. No harm, no foul.
We're here again live with Dodger legend Steve Sax. Hey, something that you're famous for is overcoming and defeating the yips. It has swallowed the career of some greats like Rick Ankiel, although he's shifted to the outfield. It seems like that happens more to second baseman. Can you help us understand the mental struggle that exists there?
Well, to make a long story short, and there's not many people that can explain it because they couldn't get over it. It's a very powerful thing. And it has nothing to do with the mental block. It has nothing to do with, anything mentally. All it is a temporary loss of confidence. And when you gain your confidence back, this thing goes away. I mean, if you look at some of the things I did after I got my confidence back and conquered this thing, I led the league in fielding at my position at second base when I was in New York. So, and for a few years, it was, playing there with alongside Mattingly, it was, I was at the very top of the fielding percentages in the American League. So you got to conquer it by getting your confidence back, and you get that back in practice every single day. Work practice like it's a real game, and confidence comes back.
Yeah, I coached Little League. My son took one in the face, and it's taken him almost a year to get back to not thinking that automatic reaction. I gotta say, I think the Dodgers are really mishandling Lux right now. He's going through a struggle. Have they reached out to you at all to help him out? What would you do if you were in charge of the Dodgers?
Oh, I could fix him in a minute. I could fix him in 1 minute. If they reached out to me, I'd go help them, but I haven't heard anything, so here I sit.
Well, I'm sure the Giants fans appreciate you not helping.
They do?
Yeah, you can just hang out with Chapman instead.
Yeah.
Hey, Daniel, I'd love to hear your perspective on, again, Steve Sax was part of the playground talk when we were kids. What has been your experience in getting this project going?
I think for me, it's growing up in LA. There's a very certain set of guys on the as a hometown heroes. You've got your Fernando and Steve Sax and Kirk Gibson that are just like essential to the Dodgers experience as a kid, and so as I'm thinking about this project, I've been trying to find Steve for a long time, because since I started this project, I am certainly going back to myself as a kid, like what did I like? Who did I like? Who did I enjoy as a kid? And Steve Sax is like right up there. He was my my cousin's favorite player. As a kid, we showed up to the ballpark early trying to get autographs from guys like Steve Sax and Mike Scioscia and all that. So it was just a matter of when I got to Steve Sax. It wasn't if I was going to. He has to be part of this project of mine.
We only need 3,000 more subscriptions, and we've got a solid effort here. Just 3,000 more. So.
Hey, get your Steve Sax print this week. It is retired forever. There's an autograph option, a Rookie of the Year inscription. Last question I have, Steve, before we get to a fan question, is can you share about your project that you're doing with NFTs?
Oh, it was great.
Yeah, and that's why I'm here today at the Sacramento Rivercats, which is the Giants AAA team. Do the Saturday home games on TV with them for the last few years, and we're talking about bringing this NFT version of this painting into the ballparks throughout America, and also to all the current players and former players. They need to go to babeandthekids.com. Go to babeandthekids.com and check this out. It's a picture of Babe Ruth coming off a barnstorming tour. It's a very iconic, famous photo of him amongst a sea of kids. And what the artist had done is he's taken that iconic photo in 1922, painted it on a mural that I own, that I bought from him, and he changed out the faces in that 22 snapshot of all the kids, and he implemented current Hall of Famers when they were little boys to every single one of these faces of these kids. And so we've digitized the photo, so you can make it as small as you want. You can put it on your watch. Or you could put it at SoFi Stadium at 129 yards long. It'll look just like it does on the painting. And then we've made it interactive. So we've first digitized it, and then we've made it interactive. So you can hover over the face of one of the little boys. His name comes up and tells you who it is. Then you double click on it, and a 1 to 3 minute video comes up of him playing in the big leagues along with all of his stats. And we're only going to mint 200 of these, and we are going to be donating a large portion of our proceeds to my son's foundation, the Captain John J. Sax Foundation. And I lost my son about 1.5 years ago in a military accident in the Marine Corps. So we're going to shoot his foundation skyward by donating a lot of our proceeds to my son's foundation. So if anybody's interested in this, it's an amazing thing, and you'll see it in a lot of the stadiums this year. It's called babeandthekids.com. Go to babeandthekids.com and check it out.
There's a banner at the bottom of the screen right now, babeandthekids.com. You can check it out.
All right, fans, you have homework to do. Go babeandthekids.com. Go to popflypopshop.com. And Daniel, do you have a fan question you want to throw out at Mr. Steve Sax?
I do, and here's a question, and I think it's really interesting, and I love it because adults who play baseball usually were kids who loved baseball. So some of the heroes that they got to see, they get to eventually play alongside with. And so Doug Dreher asked this awesome question, and I'm always curious about it too. He says, I'm always interested to hear about influences and player careers. Who was your greatest influence as a young player? How did it affect
Yeah, no, I wish I came with a list.
Is that a question for me?
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
sorry, it's for you. They don't want to know anything from me.
Yeah. So the greatest influences I had, I was able to love watching baseball when I was a kid. I wanted to be a baseball player since I was 5 years old. And I was a big fan of the Giants. Willie Mays and Willie McCovey were my favorite players. And I got to watch these guys once every other year. My dad got an opportunity to take us to Candlestick Park, and I got to see McCovey and actually Mays play in one of his last games there. And so I always had an opportunity to play. I was never forced to play, but I always had an opportunity to play, and I loved it. And I always wanted to be a ball player, and I was fortunate to make that happen.
Wow. Well, Steve Sax, thank you so much for your time. As an Angels fan, don't help the Dodgers at all. Let them mishandle Lux. Let them crash and burn. But I love you sharing your project, babeandthekids.com. Again, I think the most underrated base stealer of that era for sure. Mr. Steve Sax, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Daniel. Bye, guys.
Yeah, man, I went back to being 8 with you in the playground right now.
Serious. You don't know how often, Evan, I think about when we're doing these, especially with guys like Steve Sax, players that I know we talked about as a kid, like being on your bedroom floor, or at my parents' house in the backyard, like with these cards, making these deals, and
Yeah.
it's just so wild. I think about that all the time as we do this. It's so wild.
I have this like Charles Dickens sort of like idea of like I go to Evan in the past and I'm like, guess what? You're going to talk to Steve Sax one day, and I'm like, what are you talking about?
Totally, same thing.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah, so thank you for for letting me live it out.
There's a question
Sax,
here.
Yeah, go ahead.
There's a question here, but I think Steve left, but the question is maybe more for me. He says, "What does the 6-time life sentences reference?" That was a little nod to The Simpsons. In the Simpsons, each player kind of had some serious issues happen with them, and Evan, you probably remember them all off the top of your head, but one of them was Steve Sax was falsely accused of crimes all throughout New York City in that particular episode of The Simpsons, and at the end of the episode, I forget what it was, who said it, but they said you're looking at six life sentences, Steve. So I weaved it into his, two times World Series champ, 5 times All-Star, and 6-time life sentence. So it's a little Simpsons, one of 2 Simpsons nods on the piece.
Oh, there's a second nod. I think I missed that one.
Oh, just right along the top. It's subtle, nothing big, but it just says Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, Oakland, Springfield, right at the very tip of the top.
Yes, Steve Sax played second base on the Springfield nuclear power plant rigged softball team. It is an amazing episode. He gets pulled over and is very polite. And when they see his license, they go, "Oh, you're from New York, huh? You must have done all those New York crimes, city boy." and that was the end of Steve Sax.
I love it. Sorry, I interrupted you, but that was a great question there.
No, it's great, but that makes me like so you got to get to Clemens, Mike Scioscia. Mm-hmm. Of course, fans have been asking for King Griffey since the beginning, King Griffey Jr. And who are you missing? One more. Right. So there's 9. Video. You've done Canseco, Ozzie Smith, Mattingly, Boggs, and now Sax.
So Strawberry. There
you go.
The other one.
Yeah, lots of Dodgers on that team.
Yeah, and I hope my fingers are crossed. I'd love to go loop back around. I did Mattingly and Ozzie before I had the opportunity to connect with ball players, and so it's not unheard of for me to visit a player more than once, more than twice even. So maybe one of these days, Don Mattingly's got a great nickname, the Hitman. Maybe we'll visit Donnie Baseball in another motif. Who knows?
I just had a Queen influence come out. The Hitman.
Oh, yeah.
That's a deep cut for the
you Queen fans out there. Yeah.
Well, hey Daniel, it's been a while since we have gotten to do one of these. It seems like there's been some shifts in the 2-week experiment back to the weekly experiment. Is there anything you'd like to just help explain on the reasoning behind some changes or what's going on with Popfly?
Just a few like minor tweaks. Last season 8, we experimented with a 2-week window. I think that added more complications than it solved. So we're going back to classic 1 week releases. So each release won't be overlapping another baseball release. When Steve Sax retires on Sunday, a new one will take its place. And one thing we have available for till next Sunday is a season ticket option. It's the ability to get the whole Popfly season at once, so you're not having to remember to every Sunday go grab it. So that's on the site. That also retires on Sunday as well. So there's a couple extra perks that you can read about on popflypopshop.com for that one. And we got a couple more collaborations in the works. We've hinted at it a little bit within the Popfly collecting community, but we've got some more Hall of Fame collaborations coming up like we did last year. Super excited about that. So fun stuff ahead.
So if you every week there's somebody on the page who like Sunday at 3:00, they're like, damn it, I forgot to buy it. So if that's you, you look into that season, just buy the whole season up front. And I'm sure you can even do that on PayPal, and PayPal breaks that up into 4 payments for you. So you could spread that payment out via PayPal. I've heard you talk about this offline, and I found it super intriguing. So I thought the listeners would enjoy it as well. Can you share the difference between like a hero piece and more of a mythology piece, and how do you make that distinction on where to go with a player?
It's hard to say. It's hard to say as to why. But yeah, it's a hero piece and a conceptual piece. And an example of a hero piece would be like Steve Sax. You know, it's a very classic, classic pose. I'm kind of listing out some of their accomplishments and you know more Easter eggs throughout the piece. But it's a very traditional thing. Something that's more conceptual would be like an Al Rabowski, the Mad Hungarian.
That's right. What I thought of too.
It comes up every interview is that piece. But the Big Red Machine, the Green Monster, the Mad Hungarian, Code Breaker. So these more conceptual pieces where I kind of dive into an idea, and as to the why and what, you know, if there's a compelling story that when you think of this player, you always think of this story, then that's sort of an easy first place to go, you know, as a story to tell. With let's see, like someone like Nolan Ryan, you know, he's very much associated with, you know, with the Texas kind of cowboy character. And so when I did the second Nolan Ryan piece, you know, it was very easy to kind of lean into that. It was a little bit more conceptual. Leaning into that idea that you have of Nolan Ryan, kind of when someone mentions his name and you think about it. And other players, you know, there's less of that narrative that's sort of baked into their career and their mythology, for lack of a better word. And so sometimes I'll lean into a more hero piece there. And so Steve Sax is one of those. I'm trying to think of another one. Joe Morgan was a recent one that's a little bit more of a hero piece. So that's sort of how I categorize things, you know, as I approach each piece.
Love it. Yeah, you never know if you get Julio Franco fighting a dinosaur or if you get Steve Sax batting.
Yeah.
You never know what you're going to get on Sunday.
Yeah, and it's a very interesting exercise too. We have 72 people watching this right now. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. Steve
Sax about the biggest audience I think we've ever had. Yeah, it's interesting for me too, and it's always a challenge that I love because the forms of baseball players are very cinematic. You know, you've got an iconic throw over a sliding guy, you know, for a second baseman, or you've got a traditional stance. But these guys generally, as cinematic as these poses are, it's generally the same pose over and over again. So it's up to me. It's my own challenge that I really enjoy, is to how do I approach these gentlemen playing this game that generally have the same pose over and over again? How do I make it new and fresh and interesting? And so that's one of my many challenges week in and week out that I appreciate it. Because if I just did guy batting, that would get really monotonous and really tiresome, and you'd kind of figure out the formula, and then you'd be done with it. So it's just as exciting and interesting to me to sort of mix it up and find those stories or those moments to interpret these players and their narratives with.
Well, I love it. And that's what keeps it fresh. I think I do want to circle back to something Steve Sax said, because I found it really profound. And if maybe any of the listeners aren't familiar with what we were talking about by the yips, there was a period in Steve Sax's career where he could not make a throw from second base. And it's a strange phenomena if you think about it, because these are professional baseball players. And we saw, I mean, Chuck Knobloch was there for a while. Even Altuve in the playoffs a couple of years ago could just all of a sudden not make a throw. And I've always heard people say it's a mental block. And he very strongly said it's not a mental, it's a confidence issue. And we're seeing that with the Dodgers right now. Lux is finally coming back from injury, and he's their starting shortstop. And in the middle of spring training, they just move him over the second, say, Mookie, you're at short. and now he can't make the throw from second, and Dodgers apparently are scrambling around what to do. And it's just, if you think about it, that's a very strange reality of something you are the best in the world at, and for some moment of time are just struggling to do it. And I think all of us 73 regular people, we probably have similar things as parents or as in our employments, where we just feel like, why am I not succeeding in this thing that I'm supposed to do? Like, I'm yelling at my kids again. Why? And the idea of confidence. How do we regain that confidence as an artist? Do you ever struggle with the confidence side?
Oh, for sure. I think that's baked into artistry as it is, you know, and the internet is not the safest place for that either. You know, I think it's an invitation. So, some of the worst things I've heard since I started Popfly, these confidence shakers, and, you know, mixed in with also the best things that I've heard, you know. And so it's a conscious choice to turn it off mentally, and just like I you know, just to turn it off and kind of go forward, you know. And I think about the careers of baseball players a lot, because it's interesting, because it is a career. Like, it's their job, you know. We put on our collared shirt and we drive to work. They put on their uniform and they go to work. But the difference is, you know, their work is nationally televised and now currently available for anyone to watch at any moment, at any time, you know. And so that pressure seems just remarkable. And I couldn't imagine, you know. I think about the times I've gone to work at a 9-to-5 job and been like, you know, I would mess up or screw up or this or that, or forget this, but there's not 30,000 people watching me do it, you know. And so it doesn't become this cycle that it must come for baseball players. It's like they lose their confidence, so their physicality suffers. So they lose more confidence, so their physicality suffers, and so on and so on. That's got to be an absolutely difficult thing to overcome. And so a lot of sympathy for baseball players, for sports players in general, just the kind of pressure that they're performing under.
Yeah, so man, we came here for art and for baseball, but everyone out there, be encouraged today. Sometimes good enough is good enough. Just to do good enough. And man, baseball players, if you hit 333, you're Hall of Fame bound, and pretty much other areas in life, if you failed 77% of the time.
And you said something right there. Good enough is good enough. I think that was one of the things that really helps me propel forward, even past the criticisms that I do get. And I think there's something really valuable in there. Like, good enough is good enough. And that's part of, like, with me, with my art for a long time. I'm in my 40s now, and I didn't feel like I didn't really turn on the engine until I was in my 40s with art. And for a lot, and I think a lot of it had to do with confidence, in for different reasons than Steve mentioned. But like, either it wasn't inspired enough, or I didn't think it was good enough, or you know, people would think, oh, he's an artist, but he had all these mess ups, the things that weren't great, you know. So there was a lot of things that stopped me from actually doing something. So many pieces did not come into being until I turned 40 and I started Popfly. And a little bit before that, part of the weekly cadence is, it's not meant to be like so much of a marketing strategy as it is as an artist strategy. Done is beautiful. Done is perfect. And Steve Sax is Popfly number 161 for baseball. That's 161 pieces I probably wouldn't have done had I not imposed, not thrown my arms around that idea that done is beautiful. And so if it's not exactly the most amazing thing that belongs in the Sistine Chapel, so what? Yes. It's done, and I did it, and I'm ready to move on to the next. And that was absolutely key for me to be able to move on. And it's been my message too for a lot of artists, especially artists, and I mean artists like, if you're writing a book or anything remotely creative, that you're making something out of nothing. I think it's important to just embrace that done is beautiful. Just like you said, Evan, like good enough is good enough. And at the end of the mindset like that, you have a body of work, whatever it is, behind you that you wouldn't have had if you stopped yourself every time something wasn't good enough, or people didn't like it, or weren't inspired enough to even start it. So anyway, that's my TED Talk right now.
Baseball is beautiful, man. And it starts like in almost a week. Granted, it's in Korea at 3 a.m. our time, but it's about to get going. Hey, can we show the Steve Sax print again? So if you're new and you're not sure how this works, you got to go to popflypopshop.com. Sunday, this is retired forever. Like Monday, you cannot buy it unless you go to eBay and pay whatever it is on eBay from somebody else. There's an autograph option if you want Steve Sax to sign it. There's a Rookie of the Year inscription that he will do that as well if you do those drop-down menus. And also there is the season pass option. Go to popflypopshop.com, play around, fish around. It's all on there. Daniel, thank you for curating this experience for us today. Any last words?
Thank you, Evan, for gosh, going from your bedroom floor when we were 9 and 10 to now chatting with these guys on those baseball cards. I appreciate you very much. Thank you for being part of this with me. Thank you everyone for joining us. We had an absolutely massive turnout here, and we've got people watching us from Belgium. Hello, Martin. And hey, Felix, sorry if you just tuned in, you missed the Steve Sax section. It's on YouTube. You can go watch the replay. But thank you all for tuning in and checking this out with us.
All right, Angel, sign Blake Snell, please, and we'll see you all later.
Bye, everybody.